Thank you.
Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I stand to support the third reading of the Gambling Amendment Bill number 2. We support this bill because it was first introduced by Labor in 2007. And I just listened to the speech from the member who resumed his seat. Good member. He said it was very important. Member, it's been very important for a very long time, since 2007. So I'm glad that the opposition, that the government has finally caught up how important it is and have decided to move it along the agenda of this House. You know, it was first introduced by the Honourable Rick Barker, and if he's listening today, Mr Speaker, he will be delighted to know that a bill that was once in his name is finally being passed today. And you know, there's quite a number of bills like this on the order paper, and I'm looking forward to what we do with the Therapeutics Agency bill that's in my name, that's been there since about 2007 as well, and keeps being put back on the order paper with little or no action. Or what about the Public Health bill, which that goes right back into the early 2000s, and we're still waiting for some action on that. So we are pleased that we're getting to the end of the process of this bill. I have to say, just in brief and in passing, Mr Speaker, there is an irony that we are debating a gambling bill at the same time that we are talking about more gambling in the Sky City Casino. And as you know, the deal was for a convention centre. Yes, I know, but this is about gambling, and gambling is around pokie machines, the most evil sort of gambling you can have. And I see a member over there nodding and agreeing with me. He knows that is true. So there is an irony, or is there a synergy, or a word like that we are debating this gambling amendment bill at the same time there is discussion about putting money into more gambling through a deal done on the convention centre. Mr Speaker, we passed some very important major reforms to gambling back in 2003. I noticed some of the members in discussion on this bill talked about how that they had put a lid on pokie machines in casinos and so on. I need to remind them, actually, it wasn't the National Party that did that at all. That, in fact, was done by the previous Labor government. We did bring in those major reforms, Mr Hudson. We brought them in by putting a moratorium on casinos, and we do not want one in Wellington. So anybody out there thinking we should have a casino in Wellington, there are those of us who will fight it tooth and nail. We want to be the cultural capital of New Zealand, the cafe capital, the coffee capital, certainly not the casino capital. We'll leave that to the Aucklanders. They can have their casino. We will have all the other good things in life. So we brought in a moratorium on casinos. We brought a reduction in the number of Class 4 gambling machines and new venues, and we had a significant shift in the focus towards minimisation of gambling-associated harm. As a Minister of Health and as a person who has an interest in the harm of gambling, that was a very important measure, because I thought it was a long time before we actually acknowledged that gambling is an addiction. And as we know, addictions can destroy people's lives. And in fact, a gambling addiction, as many of us have learnt from constituents and from knowing people who have addiction, people can lose their homes, their houses, their families because they are addicted to gambling. And so those big changes that we made, I think, were very important indeed. This bill makes some more small policy amendments and some technical amendments, but it aims to allow it to operate as it was originally intended. So, Mr Speaker, we in fact do support this bill. I think that Peter Dunn's SOP 454 strengthens the bill to some extent. And we believe that whatever we can do to improve the gambling environment that we have in New Zealand, the better. You know, we are a nation of gamblers, and there's nothing wrong with a flutter now and then. I mean, I went to, Mr Speaker, and you'd be interested as a member from up that Waikato way, I went to the Trentham Cup this year. And of course, once a year, some of us go to the races. I know Mr Bishop was there, enjoying a flutter. I did too, lost my purse of money, which wasn't very much, being miserable in terms of the dollar each way I put on, but I enjoyed it. I did get some tips from Sue Moroney. None of them were really good, but I did enjoy the flutter that I had, and I think New Zealanders do. They like the opportunity to take a lotto ticket or to have a bet on the horses. No one's denying that. But what we are concerned about are those gambling operations that are addictive to New Zealanders. And we know that it's not easy to get addicted to lotto every Saturday night because it doesn't reinforce you often enough. In fact, as you know, you're not reinforced at all unless you're 1 in 10 million or something. But we do know that pokie machines, gambling casinos and so on have intermittent reinforcement to the person who is involved in them. And so legislation coming out of this Parliament that helps around those issues allows people to still enjoy a gamble now and then, but does put in protections we think is very important indeed. And just in conclusion, Mr Speaker, I have never forgotten that before we put in restrictions on pokie machines under the last Labor government, there was a hotel that opened up in the poorest part of my electorate. And what shocked me was it wasn't going to be the beer that was poured at the bar that was going to keep them going. It was the pokie machines that were being put in where the poorest people of my electorate lived, encouraged to have a go on the pokie machines for some hope. And so I have to say, Mr Speaker, I, at that moment, knew that if that was the only way they were going to make money, encouraging people to gamble more on pokie machines, we had things wrong, which is why I am glad that we have restricted the numbers and we've involved local government much more in gambling than we had in the past, and I would like to see us do that with alcohol. So we've got a way to go because we haven't addressed that issue properly yet, and I look forward to when we do address the alcohol issues in terms of local government's ability to have alcohol plans and so on. So we do support it, long overdue. Pleased that it's finally coming to its third reading, and I say to Mr Barker, who will definitely be glued to his crystal set, this bill is finally going to be passed.
I call Jonathan Young, 5 minutes.